It's hockey romance. I've just been laughing at the whiplash I have been having in terms of writing style. Wait, this is not a duology? Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. This week, we are going to be focusing on reading some arcs. I do tend to receive a good number of arcs every month. I don't receive too many arcs because I've also been a little bit more discerning, I guess you could say, in terms of what arcs I have been opting in for over the past couple months. So my arcs physical TBR right now is not too big, but I do always like to stay ahead with my arcs, you know, read them in a respectable amount of time so I can review them and then also let you guys know which books you guys should be adding to your future TBRs. This is my current stack of physical TBRs right now. I actually have more than these, but some of the other art copies I have, the books have actually already been released and I'm just way too late in reading them. But this is the stack of my now relevant arcs. And I do actually have a couple of EPUB arcs that are available on my Kindle to read as well. But yeah, I think we need to go ahead and read some of these. I do want to kind of mood read them this week. I do have some arcs across a couple different genres, but the first one that I am just itching to pick up is actually, I think this is actually my most recent addition to my TBR and my recent arc addition to my TBR, of course, but I'm so excited. I'm so excited, you guys. Dawn of the Firebird by Sarah Mughal Rana. I haven't even had this book in my hands for that long, but I have been itching to read it ever since I heard of it, ever since I received it. Everything that I've heard about this book just sounds completely right up my alley. So first of all, this is an adult fantasy. This book is compared to The Poppy War, She Who Became the Sun, and The Will of the Many. Now, I have not read She Who Became the Sun yet, but I did absolutely love The Poppy War, and I did absolutely love The Will of the Many. So we follow the discarded daughter of an emperor in this one, and she's always been raised by her mother's nomadic tribe until a violent raid ends that peaceful life. Amid all of this chaos and death around her, the heavenly magic of Noor awakens within her and grants her the power to wield a cosmic light. So now Camilla, that's our main character, she now goes from outsider to a weapon because of her newfound powers, and she's finally accepted into her father's court, and she begins to train in combat and poisons, which, if you know me, you know that I have been seeking poison maiden books. I don't know, there's something about using poison as a weapon in fantasies that just gets me so excited. I don't know, there's something about poisons. But tragedy strikes again, and when her clansmen are defeated by a rival empire, Camilla vows lasting vengeance as she escapes. However, Camilla is not alone, for something shadows her, feeding her darkness. So then Camilla needs to go on and infiltrate the enemy's army academy. Infiltrate an academy, how much more Jamie can you get? She studies jinn, magic, and martial arts from cutthroat mystic monks in a bid to bring down an empire from within. Through her studies, Camilla begins to question her father's teaching of war and rule. So this is definitely a big revenge story. I love the martial arts elements. This is the first arc we're gonna read this week. Good morning. I am 60 pages in. I have been taking it very, very slow. I did just finish reading Words of Radiance yesterday as well. So a lot of the time when I jump from one high fantasy book to another high fantasy book immediately, it takes me a little while to adjust and to literally exit one world, enter back into our real world, and then enter into another fantasy world. So there's a lot of traveling going on in my brain right now. But yeah, I did take this a little bit slower last night. I also think that the way this book is written so far kind of requires you to slow down a little bit, but in a good way. The writing is so poetic. It almost feels like I'm reading poetry almost, and we have been learning a lot about the lore and the history of this world. There's lots of legends and folk tales and stuff that really help to build the foundation of this world, and we're getting kind of all of that at the beginning of this book. So there's just a lot of information to take in right now. I think if I were to compare the opening of this book to any other book, I would say it feels kind of like When the Moon Hatched. It takes you a little bit of time to to settle into that world. In terms of the writing style too, like When the Moon Hatched was also that kind of very flowery, poetic writing that had a lot of world building at the beginning and you had to learn a lot of new terms and stuff. But I do think the trajectories of the stories will be very different. Our protagonist immediately is very different. In When the Moon Hatched, Rave, our main character, we began her story as like, you know, a very tough, sassy, you know, angry character. But in Dawn of the Firebird, our protagonist, we're really growing up with her. We start the story literally at her birth, and we are now following her as a young teenager. She is 13 years old, and I think we're just kind of gonna go on this journey growing up with her. And there's something about reading about a young child that is put in these really, really intense traumatic situations that gets me every time. But yeah, I am loving learning about this world. There's a lot of information to take in, but I'm looking forward to the feeling for when I'm like fully settled in and then I can, you know, like really, really, truly get into the story. Let's continue to read today. I'm around 270 pages in. Let's do a little update. First of all, just as a little side note, I love when food is described in books. There's something about it. I think it's just because like I am an absolute foodie. Like in real life, I love trying new food. I love learning about food in different cultures. And so whenever I'm reading a book and the food is described, it just gives me all kinds of joy. And the food is described so wonderfully in this book. But outside of those fun little food descriptions, this book is overall very, very heavy. Like Sarah is not shying away from the heavy topics. There is, as I mentioned, a lot of trauma with our protagonist at a young age, and then like still as she just like continues to go through life. And that I feel like is actually something that's being explored in a very unique way in this book, like her trauma and grief as a child and how it's shaping her as she grows older. I don't want to say too much, but there's a certain thing that's sort of happening with the way she is suppressing her memories to kind of help her move on in life that is very different. I will have to say though, this book is requiring all of my brain power to focus on it. Like, as I mentioned at the beginning, it took a little while for me to get accustomed to the world. There was a lot of lore and history that we were getting right at the start. And then now we are learning a lot about war strategy. And I'm not like new to fantasy war books. I obviously love reading a lot of epic fantasy that has a lot of warfare in it, but the war strategy in this book, for some reason, like it seems very complex to me. Like there's a lot of moving pieces, and as our protagonist is sort of going into this school academy environment, she's also just learning more about war strategy, and there's a lot of theory and stuff that's going into it. And so I'm gonna be completely honest with you, some of that is just going straight over my head. I fear I am not like smart enough about all the strategy stuff to pick everything up, but I am still really loving Sarah's writing. Again, it is just absolutely so beautiful, so descriptive. I love the way she captures moments, and I really do love the characters in this book. I am just over halfway in this one now, so we'll see how the rest of it goes. Okay, I have about 70 pages left. Let's go ahead and finish it, and then I will give you my final thoughts. Oh my god, there's one particular character. Whenever their name is mentioned, I just start getting really, really emotional. Like one particular character has cut very deep into my heart. Okay, some final thoughts now that I'm done Dawn of the Firebird. Yeah, this was definitely a heavy read. It's quite dense on, as I mentioned, the war strategy and also the lore. So it's something you really just need to put your head in, really focus. There's a lot in here, but I did really enjoy this. I think Camilla as our FMC was just such a unique perspective to read in, and I've read about a lot of FMCs in a lot of different fantasy novels. For one, as I mentioned, just the way she was dealing with all this trauma that she experienced as a young child, and the way she sort of repressed these memories, and then also how that shaped her to be this very specific personality when she grew up, was very interesting to read. She was also just very torn in her identity. I think in a lot of fantasy novels, we tend to read about characters that are split between, let's say, two different sides and they have to choose a side. But in this one, we had more than two sides in here. Just a lot of different identities and loyalties that Camilla had to navigate. So that was really interesting. I also really liked the fight scenes in this book. The way that all of the action was described, like the martial arts in this was very good. I think the fighting style was very unique actually. And along with these types of stories where our protagonists are struggling with their identity and like where they belong and stuff, that always pairs really well with a great found family. I definitely have some questions about kind of how the magic worked. I think that's still a little bit fuzzy in my head, but from what I've picked up, it is sort of similar to the magic in the Poppy War in a way, because the way you access your magic is you meditate and you connect to these sort of heavenly spirits, and that's how you gain access or channel your magic. So there are some similarities to the Poppy War in that, but there's like also a lot more involved, and I'm a little bit confused at it to be honest, and I'm still a little bit confused at some of the war strategy. I think some of that just maybe was a little too advanced for me personally. Overall, really enjoyed this. The story was amazing. I think I'm gonna give this a 4-star. I think it was a really solid read. I'm excited to read more from Sarah. That is Dawn of the Firebird. Our first arc for this week has been read. This does come out on December 2nd. Let's move on to our next book. I think I need something like lighthearted, like maybe easy to read. After that one, there is one that is staring at me from my TBR over here. I think honestly, like most of the other arcs I have are fantasy or romantasy arcs, and I kind of want something that's set in this world because I haven't read a book that has been set in this world in a very long time. I've been diving into so many fantasies lately, which is wonderful, but I think I need to like ground myself for one book. I might pick up Fake Skating by Lynn Painter. It feels a little bit early in the year to be reading this because I don't know, to me Fake Skating sounds like a very winter romance, but I did receive this arc a couple months ago and I do want to read it, and I think now is the perfect time. This one might be out right now actually though, because it says September 2025 on there, so I think I missed the deadline. I'm a little late in reading this one, but out of all of the arcs I have, I think this is the one that I need for my like mental health and soul right now. I actually have not read that much Lynn Painter. The only Lynn Painter book that I have read so far is Better Than the Movies, and that was a YA romance. I don't actually know if this one is YA or adult actually. Oh, here, there's more information on the back. It says on sale date September 30th, so I missed it, oops. But it's still quite a new book, so I can still read this and let you know if you should add it to your TBR. And it does say this is teen fiction, so it is another like younger reading romance. But let's see what this one is about. Obviously, there's some sort of skating involved. Growing up, Danny couldn't help but follow around the dorky and adorable son of her mom's best friend. Okay. So it sounds like Danny and Alec were inseparable as they were kids until Danny moved away. Flash forward to years later, Danny is back in Minnesota after her parents' devastating divorce. While she's dealing with her parents' breakup, Danny attempts to rekindle her friendship with the cozy and comforting Alec, but teenage Alec is nothing like the kid Danny remembers. He is the hockey star in a town where hockey players are worshipped like gods. Oh no, it's hockey romance. Instead of little Danny following him around, Alec now has a line of fans drooling all over him, and he loves it. One thing leads to another, and Danny and Alec find themselves thrown together to play the roles of boyfriend, girlfriend. Complicated becomes an understatement. So I'm guessing, it doesn't really say here, but it sounds like maybe Danny does figure skating and Alec does hockey. Oh no. If you listened to one of our recent podcast episodes where we talk about some viral books we would never read, I mentioned that I'm not really into hockey romances and I never really want to pick up one of those books that are called like pucking something, like pucking around or whatever. And it sounds like this is a pucking book, but it was deceiving because it's called Fake Skating. So I thought it'd be more of a skating book and not like a pucking hockey book. But okay, you know what? I guess it's time to face my fears and pick up a hockey romance. This better be good. Don't mind my wet hair. I just took a shower, but I have read not that much, about 50 pages of Fake Skating so far, and I've just been laughing at the whiplash I have been having in terms of writing style, going from something like Donna the Firebird to something like Fake Skating. Like, I just came from such a dark, heavy, adult, high fantasy book and then went right into this YA cute romance book. Like, the difference in writing style is just, I don't know, it's just so funny. But like, I did this to myself, you know, this is what I wanted. This is what I said I wanted. I wanted to pick up something kind of silly and fun and light like this after such a heavy book, but it's just making me laugh. Like, the way things are written. This book is written in first person POV. We do have a dual POV, but just being in a first person POV inside the minds of these teenagers and just like their thought process on how they're processing what they're going through is just, it's so funny comparing it to Dawn of the Firebird. And it's like, you can't even compare the two because obviously they are such different genres. And I don't want to say like the characters in here are not going through anything, there's no depth. That's not the case at all. I mean, I'm only 50 pages in, so I don't know yet, but they're not comparable. But it is just funny that I went from something so serious to now just like seeing teenagers trying their best to be angsty teenagers. But I mean, I can't really hold that against the book. It's a YA romance, so obviously it's gonna be quite teenager. But there are some funny moments so far. Like, there are some funny creative moments that I can just picture happening in my head and kind of make me laugh. So I'm gonna keep reading tonight. We'll see how much farther we get into this. But yeah, we just went from one mood to, you know, a complete 180, the complete opposite mood. So just something a little funny. Okay, there's a whole bunch of sounds going on in this house right now. The air conditioning is on, the dishwasher is on, and we're also in the kitchen because I just made an apple crisp and I'm just waiting for it to cool down and I need to watch it so the cats don't jump up on the counter and eat it because they would. I'm also sitting next to this giant bag of cat food, which is wonderful, but I'm at around 200 pages. I think we're getting close to the halfway point of Fake Skating. I was, as you guys know, I was very worried going into this book because like I had already previously sworn off hockey romance as a genre, but I will have to say, if I were to jump into any hockey romance, I feel like this one's actually a really good one for me because our FMC is not a hockey fan. Like, her whole thing is pretty much like she does not care about hockey. She kind of hates that Alec, her friend, has become this hockey player, so she's like very much against it. And so I'm just glad that I'm not reading about a character who's just like obsessed with hockey players and just like lusts over them because they're hockey players, which is what I was worried about in terms of the hockey romance genre as a whole. I thought the entire genre would be like that, but apparently it's not. So that's a good thing. And I do overall think the story is very cute so far. It does read very high school, as I mentioned. Our characters are in their senior year of high school, so there's just like a lot of young thoughts and young things happening in this plot. But that being said, I do think I'm actually really impressed at how well Lynn Painter has captured this high school essence in this book. Like, the things that Danny, our protagonist, is going through. She has social anxiety, which I actually really love reading about. I feel like we just don't get enough protagonists or love interests with social anxiety, so whenever I do see it in a contemporary romance, I am a big fan. And I think that social anxiety plus the high school experience is actually portrayed very, very accurately in this book. Like, me as someone who has social anxiety, who also went through high school and can really relate, honestly, to some of the things that Danny is feeling. I don't know, moments where you'll be in class and you'll be dreading going up and speaking or presenting to the class, but then that anxiety and that dread is just amplified even more because you are so aware, like hyper aware of who is in the room with you, like who your classmates are, just stuff like that. It's kind of eerily accurate, so that's good. I also, yeah, I do really like the story so far. I love everything that's going on outside of the romance as well. There's some family stuff going on. I think the grandpa character in this book is probably gonna get me really emotional at some point, so I'm enjoying it. There is, like, the writing is not my favorite. It is very modern day. There's some like TikTok slang and, you know, stuff like that. Our characters will either think something or say something that will really take me out of it because it really feels like a teenager on TikTok, or, you know, like, not really my style. But overall, I am enjoying the progression of the story. I think it's really cute. But yeah, I'm gonna keep reading. My house smells so good right now. It smells so good right now, and I can't even eat this apple crisp that I just baked because I actually baked it for a Thanksgiving dinner that we're going to tomorrow. Oh, but it smells so good and I want some. Like, it just smells like apples and cinnamon and pastry, like oats and crumble in here. Oh, it smells so good. This was cute. I just finished it. I will say the third act conflict was so annoying for me, but that tends to be the case with a lot of romance books for me. It's actually more common than not for a romance third act conflict to just irritate me, but this one was very much a miscommunication third act conflict. I mean, like, the miscommunication was building throughout the entire book, and that is definitely a very common theme to happen in a fake dating trope romance. So I was expecting it, but the one main chapter of the third act conflict was very, very frustrating for me to read, and not in a good way. But I will say there were a lot of good moments in this book. There were a lot of moments that actually made me feel quite emotional. There were some really cute moments. There were some really heart-wrenching moments and heartwarming moments. So at the end of the day, although this book was quite predictable, and although there were some tropes in this book that are not my favorite, I think I overall enjoyed this read, which is always surprising when I read a book and I'm like, this book has so many tropes that I usually hate. If it's done relatively well by the author, like, an author can convince you on tropes that you don't like. So I think there were some good moments in here, and I was right. The grandpa character in this book definitely made me feel some things. I love him a lot. And funny enough, this book actually really explores the idea of belonging as well, which was a very evident theme in Dawn of the Firebird. We obviously show that theme through a very different way. It's more like Danny, our protagonist, as a teenager, as a student, has always had to move around to different schools. So there was a lot of her, you know, just trying to find a place that felt like home, like a permanent home, because she'd been moving around so much in her young teenager life. So I thought this was solid. I think I'm gonna rate it a 3.5. There were definitely moments where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so annoyed at this book, but I think there were enough good moments in here that made this a very enjoyable read. So I would definitely recommend it if you are looking for something lighter, easier to read, but still has like a little bit of emotional depth to it as well. I definitely wouldn't recommend it though if you are very much over high school books. I am very confused though. Just one more thing about this book. When I look at the cover and I look at the title, it says fake skating, right? And I get that it's a play on fake dating and it's cute and punny and whatever. But along with that, we also have on the cover a couple of cartoon images. And in these cartoon images, you know, we do get the sense that he's a hockey player. I completely missed that when I originally picked up this book. But we also have her skating around different poses and skates in every single cartoon image here. She's either wearing skates or holding skates, or there's skates in the scene. And did she skate once in this book? No. She did not skate one time. So I'm a little confused at that because I thought she was going to be some sort of a skater, or like she was at least like going to go out on the ice at some point. But there was no skating involved on her part. It was just her watching the hockey games. But anyways, yeah, solid read, 3.5 for me. Definitely some really good moments in there. But let's jump into our third arc of the week. I am so excited for this next one. It's actually an arc for a sequel of a duology. So it'll finish a duology. This one comes out in December, and I did enjoy the first book. So I'm really excited to read The Rebel and the Rose by Catherine Doyle. This is the second book to The Dagger and the Flame, which is a romantasy. I read the first book 2 months ago, I want to say, quite recently. So I love that I've received this arc already. What day does this come out? December 2nd. Oh, is that the same day as Dawn of the Firebird? It is. But yeah, this is a romantasy. We follow Seraphine, and in the first book, right at the beginning of the book, a tragedy occurs. She loses her mother in that tragedy, and she has to flee and find cover in this order of thieves. So we're set in a city where we have an order of thieves and an order of daggers, and they are very much like rival clans. There's a magical substance in this world called Shade, which will give you shadow powers essentially, and the making and distribution of that substance is obviously very controlled by these two different clans. Seraphine joins the Order of the Thieves, but there is a particular shadow male main character who is a part of the Order of the Assassins that has been tasked to basically follow Seraphine around, assassinate her, and the story goes on from there. The first book was actually very fun. We dove deeper into sort of the politics and the magic than I would have expected for a romantasy like this. So I'm excited to see like how much deeper we get into it in this second book. So yeah, if this one goes well, then I'll be able to confidently recommend this duology as a whole to you. So I'm excited to read this one. Let's get into it. I truly do love Catherine Doyle's writing so much. I forgot, I only read the first book a few months ago, but getting into this straight away, I just like all those feelings came back of just like how much I enjoyed the first book. The first book wasn't perfect for me, but first of all, I do think Catherine Doyle really knows how to start a book. She knows how to reel you in immediately. Her prologues are wonderful. There's just something about them. They have the perfect level of intrigue. The prologue of the first book actually started quite cozy, but it also gave you the feeling of like, oh my gosh, everything is going to fall into chaos. And the prologue for The Rebel and the Rose was also really, really well done in a complete different way. It just draws you in. Yeah, she just introduces you to this mystery, this thing that you need to solve and figure out. And so I really enjoyed that. I also love how this duology in general blends cozy vibes with high stakes perfectly. We also have a wonderful found family that I had kind of forgotten about, but now I'm remembering them and remembering how much I love them. And what can I say? I'm just already having so much fun, and I've only read this much of the book. So yeah, this world truly is sort of like a very simplified version of the Jade City world, because we're dealing with these two opposing clans, because we have this sort of magical substance that we are trying to regulate and control. But then we combine that with this sort of Romeo and Juliet, but also cat and mouse sort of a story, and it's just so addicting to read. I also really appreciate how the plot in this duology really goes in directions you would not expect, because when you listen to the synopsis of this book, you probably just think, oh yeah, this is just another regular romantasy, you know, we have some sort of a shadow daddy in here, we have a cat and mouse, enemies to lovers sort of a story. Like, it doesn't sound overly unique when you just talk about the bare bones main general plot of the story. But when you actually get into it, and obviously I'm not going to tell you specific plot points because you need to read the book to find those out, these books actually take unexpected twists and turns and just like a different direction in the plot that you would expect. And we do get a lot of political scheming. We do dive more into the magic and the production of this magical substance. And so yeah, I'm just having a whole lot of fun with this. My biggest critique of the first book actually did have to do with the romance. I think with this sort of enemies to lovers cat and mouse situation, there was just too much sort of lust or physical connection between our two main characters and sort of pining for each other physically while they were in their enemy stage, which is something I just don't love in a romantasy plot line. So we'll see how the romance in this one is. But yeah, outside of that, I just have the time of my life with these books. So I'm gonna continue reading this one today. I feel like I'm gonna blast through it so quickly. So let's just continue reading. So much fun with this, you guys. I've actually been really devouring this book. I'm on page 366. I believe there's maybe anywhere between 100 to 200 pages remaining, maybe around 150 pages remaining. I am having the time of my life reading this. It is so much fun. I remember when I was reading the first book, The Dagger and the Flame, I was saying that if you loved something like Heartless Hunter or the Crimson Moth duology, definitely pick this one up because the first book in particular really gave Heartless Hunter, Crimson Moth vibes. We have this sort of cat and mouse situation. We have a fantasy world that is interesting but not too complex, so it's easy to grasp. There's a heavy focus on the romance as well, and the dynamic between the two characters really felt like Crimson Moth. So I do remember saying if you loved that one, read this one. But I'm gonna go out there and say that The Rebel and the Rose, this sequel, is better than Rebel Witch, because I remember when I was reading Rebel Witch, I was feeling really disappointed in it. It really just felt like the same cat and mouse but times two, kind of in a slightly different font. But I remember really wanting more of the world, to learn more about the magic, expand on our lore, to finish out the duology, and I was really missing a lot of that in the sequel. This is giving me everything I was missing in Rebel Witch. You know, we're venturing to different lands. We're seeing new sights. We are meeting new characters. We are expanding our knowledge on the kingdoms, but in a way where there is still a big focus on the romance, because of course this is a romantasy, so the romance plot is going to be quite important. And so I feel like this is just the perfect balance of a romantasy duology sequel, where you still get a lot of romance, but you also get a lot of good plot. And so it doesn't feel like you're just reading the exact same thing times two just to have a sequel, if that makes sense. I will say it's not entirely unpredictable. Like, we have had some kind of big twist moments happen so far, and like I've predicted all of them. Like, none of them have been actually surprising to me, but it doesn't even matter because I'm having so much fun along the way. I will say my critique about the romance from the first book still stands in this one. I think it's just like a little too in your face. Like, I don't hate the romance. I actually do like the romance in this book. I am enjoying it, but I think there are a lot of parts where it just feels a little bit too in your face, too on the nose. Like, we don't really have an enemies to lovers situation in this one, but we definitely have some misunderstandings and tensions and just like wavering loyalties between our characters. And in certain situations where they're supposed to be like kind of enemying in that moment, we just get too much physical attraction in those moments. Like, every single time our characters look at each other, we are reminded that like, ooh, he has such a strong chiseled jawline, or like she has such soft sumptuous lips. It's like, I know already. I know that they already like each other. I don't need to be reminded about it every single time that they like gaze at each other from across the room. Like, I know it. There's a certain beauty and art to subtlety that the romance in this book doesn't quite hit. But apart from that, I'm just really loving the ride. We're gonna finish this one today, I think, because yeah, I think we have, do I dare look at the final page count without, you know, trying to spoil myself? Let's see. This is a 507 page book, so I have, yeah, about 150 pages left. We can blast through this. This is also such a quick read book, so yeah, let's finish it. But so far, this is looking real good. I actually really love this one even more than I enjoyed the first book. So fingers crossed it stays good. Wait, this is not a duology. This is not a duology? Hold on. Where's my phone? I need to look this up immediately because what do you mean? I thought this was a duology. I thought this was going to be the conclusion. But that was very clearly not the conclusion because, like, it was a great, satisfying story, but it's very clear that we have something we need to do. Okay, there's only 2 listed on Goodreads so far. What? I need to Google this. One sec. I'm so confused because Google is saying The Dagger in the Flame is confirmed to be a duology. What? Maybe I need to find Catherine Doyle on like Instagram. Maybe there's something official that she has said. Oh, okay, I found in a comment section on Catherine Doyle's Instagram, someone actually asked how many books are there going to be, and she commented back 3. So confirmed, this is actually a trilogy. It's not a duology. Oh my gosh. That was my mistake. I wonder if this was intended to be a duology, but then as she was writing the second book, she was like, no, there's more to be said. There's more to be done. And so it turned into a trilogy. I wonder if that was the case because I swear I was so convinced that this was a duology. Anyways, this was wonderful. I mean, if we're going to talk about trilogies and how usually a lot of second books in trilogies fall into that like second book syndrome category where they really seem like boring, kind of like middle books. This was definitely not the case. I was 100% convinced, even as I was reading this, I was like, wow, this is an amazing sequel to a duology. Did not feel like a connector, sort of a middle second book to me at all. It was absolutely wonderful. Enjoyed it way more than the first. Such an exciting third act. And I mean, I'm not complaining that there's gonna be another one to read, but I also just thought that I would be finishing a series after reading this. And apparently I have not finished a series. It is unfinished. There is going to be one more book, hopefully. We'll have it next year. Who knows? Nothing's been announced. I don't know if this is a 5-star necessarily because as I mentioned, I did have a couple of little minor complaints about the way the romance was done in this book, but it was definitely miles better than the first book. And the plot, as I mentioned, was just so much fun. This world is so fun to be in. And as someone who has been very like bored of romantasy, this one definitely did it for me. I had so much fun. I think I'm maybe gonna actually give this a 4.5, which is such a high rating. I'm kind of surprising myself with that one because I think I gave the first book maybe a 3.75. I think. I honestly can't remember, but this was so fun. Would highly recommend. The first book is already out, and then you can go on to this one on December 2nd. But yeah, that I've been saying this is a duology this entire time. It's not a duology. But yeah, if you're craving a romantasy that does have, you know, more of a plot than just the romance plot line, that actually expands in the magic, in the world, in the lore, that has a lot to do with prophecy, royal families, and rebellion, and also saints with all sorts of cool kind of affinities, would highly recommend. That being said, that is the end of this week of reading arcs. I had a great time this week from reading Dawn of the Firebird, which is a beautiful high fantasy, very dark with heavy themes, to Fake Skating, which surprised me with the hockey romance genre, but I still had fun reading it, and then now to this surprise romantasy that is actually a trilogy and not a duology. I had a lot of fun this week. So would definitely recommend all 3 of these books, you know, depending on whatever mood you're feeling. But that being said, I am going to leave you guys here for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know out of these 3 books that I read, which one would you be the most excited about? If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!